I struck a deal with God that if I had a severe heart attack, I would finally be free from the pain that I had been in for the most of my life, both physically and mentally. After getting injured by a hit-and-run taxi while riding my bicycle in September 2003, which resulted in painful surgery and illnesses for around 9 years, the anguish became even more acute. I was aware that my time had come to pass. I started having severe seizures at the beginning of the 3rd month of tapering off of the around 15 prescription medicines that I had been taking. I was admitted to the hospital on March 6th, and on March 7th, after being removed from the feeding tube, I began experiencing severe convulsions. On the late night of March 8th and early morning of March 9th, 2012, about 2 in the morning, I experienced a life-changing near-death experience. I was aware that the seizure was about to occur, and in preparation, I wrapped sheets around my wrists and ankles so that my body would not thrash around as much and startle other people. It wouldn't have mattered if I had died. I was worn down by the severity of my illness, and I was aware that my end was near. The onset of the seizure coincided with the completion of the final wrapping of my ankles, after which I exited the room. I am in a very brief blank that seems to be a very faint silver-gray color. Then I am aware that the ground I am standing on is not Earth's surface. I am aware that I have successfully crossed over to the other side. I am completely enchanted by the ground that like a diamond and consists of what appears to be quartz crystal, white marble, and even something that looks like it may be transparent glass. There were jutting diamonds that stood tall, were smooth, and glistened so much that I did not want to take my eyes away from this ground. The bulk of the ground was covered with these protruding diamonds. I had always been a pretty curious person, so naturally, I glanced up to see what more was there. I was surprised to find that there was more. I looked to my left and noticed a vast, clear blue sky as well as a breathtaking waterfall that had some lush, emerald grass growing around its perimeter. I saw a monumental gate made of stone that led to what I took to be the entrance to heaven. When I checked to see how far this barrier went, I discovered that it seemed to go on indefinitely. After then, I became aware of a voice speaking to me. At the same time, it sounded like the booming authority of authority and the lovely loving tenderness of kindness. It said that the reason you were there was because you had visited me several times. I got an instantaneous realization that any and all prayers I had ever said had finally been answered. When I was a youngster, a preteen, and a teenager, I suffered from terrible physical and mental abuse, as well as sadness at times. As a result, I prayed nonstop. I found myself in a garden in heaven that was located just outside the main entrance. On this specific day, my body was running a high fever, and I had been given ice in the hospital many times in an effort to bring my temperature down. During my near-death experience, I was able to see the entrance to heaven as well as the intricately carved golden pathway that led there. I looked down and noticed that the ground underneath the route was not the same as the enormous diamond-shaped ground I was standing on. I was escorted to the waterfall after being scooped up by an angel by the back of my body and carried by them. I woke up near the base of the waterfall where I had been lying out. My left tiny fingernail, with the tiniest and most insignificant of touches, touched the water that was not actually water. Diamond-like hues seemed to be radiating from it, giving it the appearance of gel. I could feel the fever leaving my body almost instantly. After then, this angel scooped me up and transported me back to the place where I had been standing before. I looked to my right and spotted my paternal grandma. It seems that she was with 3 other relatives whom I am familiar with. My grandfather's mother is standing to my left, along with 3 additional relatives on my father's side that I recognize. My grandfather went from the maternal side to the paternal side of the family because it appeared that my father wanted my attention. Because no one else was smiling, I thought to myself, God is going to pass a severe judgment on me. I can take it. I am here in the garden, and I will take any judgment and accept all of my crimes as a decision that I made when I could have done better. I will do this because I know that I have the ability to do better. Perhaps God will comprehend the struggles I had while I was still living. After saying hello to my family members and being aware that I would soon be subjected to a rigorous evaluation, I postured myself as if I were a soldier by standing very straight and tall. In front of me was a big orb that had the gleaming eye of God embedded in it, and it was floating there. It was so enormous and glowed brilliantly white and filled with the light of diamonds. I responded, I am ready. I am aware that I have behaved badly. You have my word to it. Judge me now. I was ordered to be quiet by this enormous orb of light, which turned out to be the gleaming eye of God. After that, it instructed me to rotate my head to the right and stare in that direction. In less than a nanosecond, I had already turned my head to gaze to the right. I observed a number of entities that resembled humans that were blue in color and had yellow auras emanating from their heads, shoulders, and bodies. Immediately, I got the impression that we had all died at the same instant, and that I was delaying other people's turn to be judged in the hereafter by holding up the line. I knew that after the judgment I would finally go through the gate, and I was looking forward to doing so. When the glisten of the eye turned their head to look at me, I spoke up and said, "I am holding up the line." The glisten then showered me with an incomprehensibly large quantity of the white diamond-like light it has. The light was composed entirely of love. Moreover, it was love in its purest form. It kept saying, "Be quiet, you belong to me," over and over again. After that, it instructed me to take a left turn. After that, I almost instantly turned to gaze to my left. The same magnificent blue entities that resembled humans appeared to me. There were rows upon rows, and there were a great number of them. I repeated my statement to the all-seeing eye of God, which was, "I am holding the line." Once more, the all-seeing and all-knowing eye of God commanded, "Be still." More light poured down on me from it, and all of it was love, unadulterated love. I had the distinct impression that my body had been restored to its normal, healthy state and that it had grown taller. Once more, the orb prompted me to check out what was going on to my right. Once more, I am gazing to my right when I hear a voice from it telling me to see closer. After that, I got my first realization that the people I was looking at were people, some of whom I had already met. After that, I was informed that I would talk to some of these individuals in the front rows of the theater. When I looked closer, I noticed that their entire bodies were encased in a thick membrane that surrounded them. The barrier emanated a golden aura, and all of the people inside it were transformed into water, much like a bathtub full of clean water. As I responded in telepathy that I now knew who these water entities were, I provided a little wave of affirmation that they were water. As I did so, I recorded the fact that they were water. The orb gave the impression that it was delighted, and then I repeated what I had already said, "You may evaluate me now. It's possible that you took offense to the fact that I admitted to engaging in questionable behavior. My previous statement will be reworded to read I made mistakes." Following that, this enormous, glimmering eye of God showered me with more healing light, uttered more things to me, and again told me to be still. I was confused as to why no judgment was being passed on me. I wished with all of my heart to get through the gate that was in front of me. I was able to hear the bustle occurring behind that enormous gate leading to heaven. After then, the all-seeing eye of God gave me a glimpse of what was beyond the entrance to heaven for a minute or two. They were all wonderful souls, and they were discussing about us here on earth and how to assist us. The first thing that I saw was a light table in the shape of an oval, because I heard words like she and he require, and we have this in place for her and him. I may infer that these souls were discussing specific persons. The next table over was a larger one, and the souls who sat there chatted in a way that made it clear to me that they were assisting various organizations. At the third table of light, there were more souls gathered around it. In addition, they discussed various groupings, and I had the impression that everyone there was taking what they were discussing very seriously. The only thing I wanted was to be able to begin my ascent into paradise and begin performing whatever duties awaited me there. For as long as I could remember, I had a running joke with God in which I would promise that if he let me into paradise, I would spend eternity sweeping floors. My focus was pulled back to the location where I was still standing on the ground that looked like diamonds. In spite of all that had been explained to me, I still find myself saying to the all-seeing eye of God, "I am taking up time, and others want to chat with you." I had overheard a few of the blue human beings sitting in the front row right tell me that they were unable to understand what the enormous orb of light was saying to them. As I turned to my right and left, I noticed that my family are cracking a small smile. I had the impression that they would let me in at this point. At this very moment, I can't help but feel excited about the possibility that the verdict may be favorable. When I started traveling down that small golden route that led to the doorway to heaven, I heard my family telling me that I am doing great through telepathy and eye contact. This happened when I started walking down that path. Suddenly, the enormous white orb that makes up the glimmering eye of God begins to fade, and a gigantic golden yellow orb begins to emerge from its right. Instantaneously, I have the impression that it is the light of Jesus. As this golden yellow light washes over me, I am immediately healed, then healed again, and then healed even further. I am unable to talk. It conveys the message "I love you" to me. When its rays contacted my body, I had the impression that they would somehow carry me higher along those beams. They touched me, and then the golden yellow orb returned back into the first enormous white orb, which represented the shining eye of God. After that, a stone ledge materialized from nowhere in the sky, and a moving artwork depicting my life was handed to me. After that, another and still another followed. I found myself reflecting about my life. Because of where I was traveling around the drawings, I was able to see that I had been friendly to individuals at various ages throughout my life. The very first moving picture I ever made was of myself when I was approximately 2 years old, racing after a butterfly that was daring me to get it. I couldn't stop grinning and having a good time while I played with the butterfly. I was wearing a dress with a pinafore edging, and I was at a park, running about with the excitement of being a little girl. I look at both of my grandmothers, the one on my mother's side and the one on my father's. They are smiling a little bit more now, and I believe that every effort has been taken to ensure that I am as prepared as possible. I have the distinct impression that both of my grandparents are reaching out to gently nudge me in the direction of the route that leads to the treasure. Everything fades away into what looks like a nothingness for a second, yet I glimpse a grayish-silver essence of some kind. When I looked up, I was once more confronted with the brilliant white gleaming eye of God. As it disappeared into the void, I watched it go like a balloon floating away into the void. Continue to do what you have been doing. I hear one more thing audibly, like an average human speaking, and it instructs me to continue to do what you have been doing. I believed it indicated that I had been carrying out my role as a soul that had passed on successfully up until that point. As I continue to pursue all of its light, it vanishes. I watch it as it disappears entirely as I am looking at the ceiling of the hospital room in which I am currently situated. Almost instantly, I was confronted with two diametrically opposed human emotions at the same moment. I was very conscious of the fact that they were polar opposites, which was either something I had never encountered before or something I had forgotten about if I had. These emotions were those of total despair despite the fact that I had been granted access to the Garden of Heaven and was filled with happiness. It was a fresh happiness that I had not before experienced in this world. I was aware that I had just gone through an experience that was spectacular and remarkable. The weeks that followed were consumed by my efforts to explain what had taken place to everyone I knew. Since my near-death experience, I have not stopped talking about it. It has brought me happiness and a fresh start in life. It is a gift to me, and it is the reason I want to continue living. Only to spread the message that God, who is love itself, is the source of all that there is and fashioned us with such incredible love and care for ourselves.